Hi, y'all. This is Han Hul, your 2021 National Policy Chair. I'm super excited to introduce our guest and why we're talking about this. As an exercise of scheduling meetings with our member of Congress, I'm so glad to be bringing on Chrissi Johnson from Rocket Mortgage. And Chrissi is the VP of Federal Policy and External Affairs. So Chrissi, I feel like I could talk and go more into depth about like all your background, but you'll introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll dive right in with some etiquettes on, how to schedule meetings, what to talk about, format and flow, I know we have a lot of Zoom call, but what's a proper formal Zoom business meeting is like with a member of Congress, and then what to do for the follow-up after the meeting.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with the group, and I share your sentiment. I cannot wait for this to be over. So as much as I am grateful for the technology that we have that has allowed us to stay in touch throughout the pandemic, I am certainly ready to see people in person, actually experience real life body language in these meetings, and get back to our new normal, I think it will be. So like you said, I'm with Rocket Mortgage. I lead our public policy and external affairs team. And part of that role is external affairs. It speaks for itself. That is interacting with the external audience. So whether that's members of Congress, folks in the agencies, in our regulatory agencies, or people, consumer advocates, trade groups. It really runs the gamut. We are constantly having to stay engaged with external stakeholders to keep our business running, to inform what we do, and really to forge an environment where we can be the most successful for our clients. So a little bit of background on me and maybe why I might have some perspective here. I come from a political background. I worked for a few different people you may know. I worked on President Obama's campaign in 2008. I was actually a scheduler for Senator Al Franken and as well as Senator Elizabeth Warren. So I have some experience actually scheduling meetings and being on the other side of the table in those meetings as well. And then I spent about 5 years at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Part of that time, I was a senior advisor for the director. And then I also was chief of staff for the Division of External Affairs. So like I said, lots of experience in setting up these meetings. This was a new one though. We had not had this one before. So I had to take some of my old tricks and really just like polish them off and kind of find a square peg round hole situation here. You adapt. We are fortunately very agile creatures, us humans, so we figured it out. But as far as some of the tips and tricks along the way, obviously there's some bare minimum things like remembering to always mute yourself when you're not speaking. That became, I think there are memes about it now, if I'm not
Probably.
mistaken. Yeah, like please mute yourself. That's a given. And I feel like we're all going to be doing that even in person now, like muting each other and muting ourselves.
Well, I mean, I wish I could meet people in real life.
Right?
I could stop talking sometimes, but
Right.
we'll take it what we can.
That's one of the things I wish we could take with us sometimes post-pandemic. But I do unfortunately think we have a little bit longer in this space. And so learning how to do the Zoom, and even next level is going to be the hybrid, which means like some folks are in person and some folks are maybe on the Zoom or the Teams or whatever your projector is, whatever your platform is. I think we're going to have to figure it out for a while here. So I guess some scheduling things that have worked well with me in the past. I start with scheduling myself and making sure whatever meeting that I have leading up to this very important meeting with a member of Congress or somebody who I'm really hoping to convince to understand my perspective for the business, I set up at least 5 minutes of cleared time beforehand to ensure that I'm allowed to get water, take a bio break, things like that, just making sure that I'm in my headspace, not only to be present in the conversation here, but then also to make sure I know what I'm getting myself into. So when you're meeting with someone, and maybe oftentimes for the first time, because let's face it, some of these staffers on the Hill, it's a pretty high turnover rate. So sometimes you'll be meeting with a brand new person every month, every meeting. Taking a minute to figure out who that is. The beauty of 2021 and the past 30 years is we got the internet. You can look this up. You can Google who you're going to meet with. And I know I've shared this with you before, Han, but I've had experience of being on the other end of it, where I had somebody come in for a meeting with me where they were trying to convince me actually to work with them on a project, and they had not done their due diligence. They didn't research anything about the person they were meeting with, and they started kind of talking smack about my old boss, Senator Warren. And I was like, to me, that is a flawed sense of judgment, and doesn't demonstrate professional strength if you're not looking at the person's history that is so readily available to you before you go into that room. And that goes into the next tip I have, which is finding that personal connection. So in 2008 on the Obama campaign, really what was the groundbreaking strategy there in the field was the Tell Your Story campaign. And that still applies today. Everybody has a story, so including the person that you're talking to. So if you can find a way to make whatever you're trying to discuss with the member of Congress or their staffer personal to you, with some personal anecdotes that are related to the policy that you are discussing, that's how you're going to stick in their brain. Because at the end of the day, well, we all want to be the most relevant person, of course, the most important person that they ever talk to, the most important group, but we are a sliver of the pie that they are dealing with. Members of Congress and their offices have to deal with the full gamut of constituent issues that their areas, that their districts face. So housing and real estate is an incredibly important one, and obviously I agree the most important one. But for that, and it is, and that's how I always relate it to, like, where you live matters. So we're in the business of housing, and if you think about the hierarchy of needs, that shelter's at the base of it. So that they're like always reminding the member of Congress that what we're doing is about creating access. It's about creating wealth and equity for everyone in the nation to have access to the financial system. It gives us access to education, to food, to public safety, all these things. So for us in housing, finding our way to make that connection to the things that matter to that member of Congress in housing, that's got to be your shtick there. That's how you got to make yourself memorable. I guess when you're in the conversation,
before we get into the conversation, I guess a lot of our members feel are very timid, because like they don't feel like they know the policy points as much as like somebody like me who's super wonky. And what advice do you have for these people that are, this is their first time scheduling a meeting with any type of elected official? Because as our community, a lot of us are immigrants. A lot of us don't even know what the governmental system is set up and how it is set up. So what type of advice do you have for
Certainly. Well, I think, again, taking it a step back, and usually these meetings are with groups of people, correct? It's not just one person. The best advice I can give is be a team. And so before you go into that room, identify, what are your goals as a group, and what are the roles of the people in the room, and commit to each other to help elevate other voices that may be more timid. Because although you say that folks may be timid, I know that real estate professionals also can be very bold and confident. You know how to talk, you know how to sell. That's what you do, and you're great at it. But not everybody's like that, especially in these rooms, because you obviously this isn't a client that you're trying to pitch. But at the end of the day, you are still trying to sell something. You're trying to sell a perspective. So just kind of channeling that back, coming in as a team, identifying who's saying what. And when you notice, if you are one of those strong talkers and one of those strong leaders, which is great, also creating space for the people who may not always be as confident in doing so. So pausing. Every time I talk, I literally will like do the drink tip where I'll like pause and take a drink. And that allows me, as I drink my water, to allow the space for someone else to talk. And that kind of takes up for some awkward silence as well. And then as far as the making sure that everyone in the room is introduced, I think sets the ground rules as well. So there's a tip and trick for that when you are in a room where usually it's physical and you're around a table and everybody, you can go around, like everybody knows it's their turn. You can't do that on the Zoom. Everybody's all over the place, you know? So I think one of the tricks I've learned in the past is I say, hi, I'm Chrissy. I'm going to introduce myself and then I'm going to hand it off to another person. And if that person can do the same, it keeps the sequence going. It keeps the timing going, the cadence going. Or you can just identify someone in the beginning to introduce everyone. But I think in cases where people may have a tendency to be more timid, sometimes setting the groundwork and allowing them to introduce themselves so their voices are heard and they at least have that opportunity to say something is a really good path forward.
Awesome. And then the question I get now is, now that we've made it easy to schedule, virtual meetings, and I obviously don't think it's going away, how do we run the meeting? What's the format? What's the content? And usually I tell people just allot 30 minutes because most member of Congress or any agency, they're very solidly booked throughout the day. What have you seen as a successful, format for meetings?
Yeah, I agree that 30 minutes is what you should allot for, but you should expect to achieve whatever you need to within 20. Because a lot of times the members will get pulled for votes or something like that, and you never know what to expect. So I'm like, if I can't get my point across in 20 minutes, this is not it for me. It would not be considered a successful meeting. So making sure you have that clear path forward about like, this is who we are, introduce yourselves, take like, you don't need more than 15 seconds on each individual introduction. It should take less than 2 minutes depending on how many people you have in the room, but that should not take very long. You really want to get in, like I said, into the bread or the meat of things, the meat potatoes of things by getting past that introduction and then making it personal. So I would state your issue, like what do you stand for? Who are you? Introduce yourselves as a group to the member of Congress. Never assume that they've done their homework on you. Even if you've sent them everything in advance, I always assume that they're coming in there like newborn baby, introducing ourselves, who we are, who we stand for, who is Aria, what do we stand for? And then why are we here today? And then in order to make yourselves memorable, oftentimes I will, once you've done who you are, introduce the group, what you stand for, why you're there today, that's when I get into the personal. So I usually try and I come in with data. For me at Rocket Mortgage, if I'm going to talk about a housing issue, I'll go talk to my capital markets team and say, listen, I am going to meet with ABC member from ABC region, and I need to know that our lending numbers in that area, so that I can say, listen, we're actually the #1 lender in your region. For you all, recognizing the membership in each of their districts, that matters a lot, because what do members of Congress care about at the end of the day?
Getting reelected.
Votes. Votes. Some of them are on a two-year cycle. Some of them are fortunate to be on a 6-year cycle if you're a senator, but they're always in cycles. So for a group like ARIA, where you have boots on the ground across the nation, that is a huge constituency. And identifying who is it from which region and how much representation you have for that district is going to be very important. And that's going to get them hooked, so you can really then go in for it and ask for whatever you're going to ask for. So there are different types of meetings, right? Like if it's an introductory meeting, you just want to introduce who you are, do so. But for the most part, if you're going to use the members' time wisely, I would try and make an ask at the end of the day. And hopefully you've done your groundwork, you've done introductory things before with the staffers so that they're there, but never assume, like I said, and make it personal.
So basically, be very well prepared for this meeting, knowing the staff member, knowing the congressperson, whether their history, which committee they belongs to is really important, because I just got off a call with Judy Chu and she's on small business and Ways and Means. And so we really honed that, even though she's a big supporter of us and she knows who we are. We just reiterated our points and like the bills that she's working on and who she could work with. And then she came back with information about how housing is in the infrastructure bill. So chapter leaders, upcoming leaders, just know and do your homework. I can't, I'm a fiend for due diligence in my personal and also my professional life, but especially with meetings. So don't make a gaffe. It's okay to make a gaffe and mistake because we're all humans, but try to do as much due diligence as you can. Then the other format I wanted to ask is like, once you've done that ask and you're ending the call, what's the follow? What's the etiquette for after the meeting?
Well, that's usually how you make yourself memorable at the end of it. Is if you have a takeaway, commit on the call and say, I am going to be following up with this information. I will say, like, I'm going to get you the additional numbers. I'm going to send them directly to your staffer or to you, or I'll say I'll send them to you. Do you want me to send them? I say, who would you like me to send them to? So that then I get the information from them about who I am supposed to send it to, and that cycle I can close and remain relevant. That's how you remain relevant to them. I do it within the next hour if I can. Never let a full day pass. Like, you want to get, like, be responsive so they have a chance to look at it. And if they don't, if they take a look at it and you don't, like, they may or may not, it's amazing how many people have holes in their email inboxes that things just slip away. You never know. I would wait a few days and then just check in and say, thank you. It was great to meet with you. I wanted to make sure you got this. If there's anything else that you are interested in working on us with, please let us know. And then you've done your due diligence. And when something does come up and you've built that groundwork and you've built that relationship that might be a little bit more urgent in the future, then you have that email to follow up on and say, hey, I wanted to follow up. We actually had something come up in this realm that I was hoping to touch base with you on. And you've got the relationship.
That's awesome. Thanks. Those are really good advice. I didn't know about like following up like within the hour, but that is really good advice. I usually do it within the day. Hopefully I don't have to do any more of these emails and the chapter leaders do, because I think, as you said, a lot of these member of Congress, elections really matter, votes really matter. And I live in Alabama, so I'm not a constituent in many of our chapters, that are based in California, but those members are. I think that's it. I mean, thank you so much for your expertise, for giving us amazing advice, and hopefully everyone can go out and conduct their own virtual meeting.
I hope so too, and good luck with all the hybrid. That's going to be next level. We'll just have to keep trying, keep growing, keep adapting.
Bless our ARIA national staff in HQ, because bless it, I could not do it all the time.
No, it is definitely like, we are learning and growing, and I am grateful for the people who have figured it out, because I certainly have not yet.